Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I want to give a great thank you to all of you who participated in the survey. I extremely appreciate it. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing, and this information is really helping me to develop this channel into something that is really going to be able to help people like you and new viewers and subscribers. Why is it going to help you? Because I'll be able to fine-tune this information and answer your questions quickly and to the point. So, one thing I didn't expect is that I got a majority of, I guess, people interested in meditation. All right, I expected the interest to be more with evoking spirits and things of that nature, but meditation came up a lot. So I wanted to make a quick video for beginners to talk just a little bit about the purpose of meditation and why I stress it as one of the first things that a practicing occultist should really learn how to do properly. What is the purpose of meditation? Right? The Buddha talks about how the big purpose of meditation is to understand the difference between what is reality and what is not reality. Right? What is Dharma and what is not Dharma. There are different types of meditations. Really the one that I have experienced the most of is the Buddhist style of meditation known as Vipassana. And that is when you really go inside and you see the difference between physical stimulation and what's going on in here. Separating the physical world from the mental world. And then going beyond if possible. Going beyond is where you would reach what's called nirvana. But the reason I suggest it for beginners is because you really get to experience firsthand the difference between the physical world and the spiritual world. Right? You begin to really experience what's going on in the subtle planes as opposed to the physical planes. So what do I mean by reality and what's not reality? Reality is that which is eternal. Okay, reality is unchanging. Human beings don't live in reality. We live in our own version of reality. Because all of our experiences are filtered by our opinions and by our perceptions, right? And our perspectives, right? We, as humans, we all distort the information that we bring in. When we fantasize or when we imagine, we're actually distorting our perception of reality, right? Before I move into an apartment and I like to visualize where my furniture is going to go, that's called a distortion because it's not actually happening yet. Now, eventually I make it happen, but it's not reality. It's not reality until I make it happen. We also delete things because the human brain it's somewhat finite, right? The average person's memory who doesn't really work on it, it can remember up to 7 things, give or take 2. So after we reach that max, we can't remember anymore, right? So we go through a process of deletion, whether on purpose or not on purpose. So when we think about what happened during the day, there's a lot of information that's left out. I mean, we're overwhelmed with information on a daily basis. And also, we kind of generalize things, right? We take what little bit of information we have and make a general assumption about it, right? For example, you know, I like Pop-Tarts, and I like the type that has the colorful sprinkles on it. Therefore, any snack with colorful sprinkles I'm going to like. It's not necessarily true, but it's a generalization. You get what I'm saying? That's where a lot of racism comes in, right? Some person might see a person of a race doing this, or even stereotypes. You see a person of a certain race doing one thing on TV, maybe, and maybe you see another person doing it on Instagram, so you assume any of that race in person is a lot like this person. Again, that's not reality. That is something our perception and our perspective has made up so that we don't have to think about it anymore. Okay? When we meditate, The point is to let go of a lot of those different strongholds that block us from reality. You can't see reality if you're looking through filters. Okay? So when I talk about meditation, I'm talking about separating from your filters, separating from the unreality of what you think is reality. I mean, if you really want to get into it, you're not even who you think you are. Right? I've gone over this in previous videos. You're a different person when you go to work and communicate with your boss or the district manager, right? You're a different person when you communicate with the person you have sex with. You're a different person when you communicate with children. You're a different person when you cut on the camera and you go online. So which one is the real you? Which one is the reality? None of them and all of them. So, the brain is a very complex thing. A complex and beautiful thing, right? Psychology and magic go hand in hand. That's why I study both. But anyways, recent studies show that the brain is a large predictive machine, constantly comparing incoming sensory information and current experiences against stored knowledge and memories of previous experiences and predicting what will come next. So essentially, what your brain is doing is it's taking in information, everything that you see and experience, all the sensory from the five senses, takes in the information and it compares it with what's already stored in your brain, right? So your mind is constantly calibrating. It compares the current situation you're going through something similar that's happened in the past, and it uses that comparison to make a prediction, right? It's a lot like a computer program. So with that process going on, you're predisposed to have a filter on reality. For example, this is why trauma is such a big thing that needs to be dealt with before dealing with magic and energy. Because say, for example, you had an experience with an Asian man who hurt you, right? So you're going to stereotypically, if the pain was deep enough and it wasn't resolved, you're going to go out, and if you see another Asian man, you're going to have an automatic aversion, an automatic fear, right? Your brain is going to take the current situation, it's going to analyze this person and compare it against what happened in the past, and it's going to deduce possibilities. It's going to say this person's dangerous, what happened before is going to happen again, right? It's going to say, you need to separate, get away, etc., etc., etc. All those conclusions that your brain's coming to is not reality, right? It's unreality. Most people go through their day-to-day lives with this type of programming, right? We stay locked in old patterns, and that prevents us from seeing what reality really is. Examples of unreality are things like names, right? My mother, my father, my daughter, my son, me. These things are ideas, they're concepts, they're not real. Things like ideas about relation and family, right? Things like groups, right? Your team. These things are ideas. Forms like the church, right? Or the school, right? The government, right? Places, countries, right? If the people that live in a country all vanished and new people came, it's not going to be called that same thing. It's not going to be called France anymore, right? This American continent was called something else before these people came and named it America. And likewise, time and space, they're all ideas. They're not concrete. They're not reality, right? And I know this video is a little bit wide, but I'm proving a point here about meditation. When you're going to go into the realm of working with spirits, working with energy, you've got to understand that the energy and the spirits live in this realm where these ideas and concepts are not reality to them. They live in a place that is reality, a place of eternity. That's why we can access the same spirits and the same energy throughout time. That's why somebody can message me who hasn't watched any of my videos and talk to me about King Payman, and we have the same experiences, right? So the point is, when you practice meditation, what you're practicing is going into that state where you can separate yourself from these illusions that I just mentioned, from the illusion of giving meaning to things that don't come with meaning, right? Removing the meaning that your brain has automatically placed on things, your prejudices, your opinions, things of that nature. So, physiology is the relation between the physical body and what happens in the mind. All right, psychology and physicality. Together they make physiology. In Buddhism, it talks about how the nature of illusion is created from when the sensory organs come in contact with the observed object. For example, the sensory organ of my eyes, right, the sight, when it comes upon an object like a skull, there's a connection there. There's the skull, and there's my senses of sight detecting that skull. That's all. It's an empty process. But what happens as far as the nature of illusion is that my conscious mind and my subconscious mind ascribe a meaning to that skull. So now I've built a whole story about what's going on here to relay information to my mind. And that in turn relays information on what reality is comprised of. I have a sense of smell, and by me smelling the incense, it creates a connection. My brain begins to define what this incense is. If I feel hot, if I feel heat or cold, again, my mind begins to ascribe a meaning to that, right? It gives definition. The same for sound, taste, etc. These things are unreality. These meanings that we're giving to the senses, this is what makes the illusion. This is what makes Maya. This is why the world is an illusion. Because we're giving definitions, false definitions, to everything that we sense, right? And that goes for our emotions too. Whenever we come in contact with a person or they say a trigger word, it's going to evoke an emotion in us because we ascribe meaning to whatever that word is. And with that meaning comes emotion. And when you put emotion behind something, energy and motion, you begin to speed up the manifestation. So like I've been talking about in my previous videos, creation goes from the mental realm, which is thought, the astral realm, which is energy, and then it manifests on the physical plane, right? That's the process. This is why we keep continuing to create the world that we're in with our thoughts. So if you're in a negative place that you don't like, unfortunately, you continue to perpetuate that because your thoughts begin to create emotions which begin to create the physical world. And the way to change that is to introduce new thoughts, thoughts that are for building the world that you are trying to live in. Those new thoughts create new emotions, which creates new physicality. This is why the concept of the legend of Kali coming and destroying that demon, I think his name was like Rakchi Bak something. Hold on. Kali is the destroyer of illusions. That demon, yeah, Raktabija, right? She's holding his head, sliced off his head, and she's catching his blood. Because the thing is, his invincibility was that whenever he was attacked, every drop of blood spilled created a whole new clone of him, right? And that is in reference to the nature of this illusion. It self-perpetuates, because every time we see something and we give it a meaning, when we see it again, we give it that same meaning and it builds upon itself. That is why trauma in our past, in our childhood, colors how we see our world, and how we perceive our world colors what actions that we make. Kali is the destroyer of illusions and destroyer of ego, because she is the energy in the process of stopping that replication of illusion. So, to reach that point, it starts with meditation. It starts with slowing down and really seeing what the illusion is, right? And the way that Vipassana teaches that is you pay close attention to your senses while you're meditating. And you don't have to sit in any special position. You sit comfortably, because this isn't a physical thing. This is a mental and a spiritual thing. So just sit comfortably where you're not going to fall asleep. And you begin to notice, if you pay attention, to the feeling of the air on your skin, the feeling of your breathing, how the air goes in and out of your nostrils. You begin to notice those tiny perceptions, right? And what you start to notice about them is the characteristic of impermanence. The fact that it rises and then it falls. It rises and it falls. None of it is permanent. Nothing that the senses detect is permanent. All the senses come and they go. They're temporary because they weren't real in the first place. Like I said, the brain is constantly taking this information and comparing it to the past and generating a prediction of what's going to happen. It's constantly updating. It's constantly calibrating, right? It's running in slices, just like a film. It's not like a long stream. When you're watching something on your phone or the computer, it's constantly buffering because you're seeing pieces of data that just keep updating, right? It's the same thing with perception. Everything is constantly updating, and you're comparing it to what you experienced in the past. But when you understand what's going on with your perception, you're not going to fall under the same loops of things happening over and over again, because now you understand why they repeat. So during meditation, you learn to not give definition to things. You learn to avoid the process of ascribing meaning to things. Like I said, the ideas of family, of group, of team, of government, the idea of self, all these things are illusions. They're just ideas that come and go, come and go. So meditation puts you in a place where you can step back and see this process happening. It's not just about calming down, right? It's not just about feeling your energy. It's about understanding that this reality as a whole is all perspective. All of it is perspective and perception and opinion. The superpower of the subconscious mind is belief. Okay? Fact is not a concrete thing. There is no fact. Facts continue to change depending on who's behind the facts, right? Science teaches us that. Science has taught us that for decades. They're always coming out with new facts, right? Once the earth was round, then it was pear-shaped, right? Different facts say that at one point sugar was great for our health. Now it's extremely detrimental, right? Facts say that lead was the best thing to put in paint. Now facts say never put lead in paint. Don't use paint with lead in it. You see what I mean? The thing that's stronger than fact is belief. Okay, like I said, belief is the superpower of the subconscious mind. Whatever fact that you ascribe all of your belief in, your subconscious mind begins to create that reality so that it makes it true, so that it makes it a fact. You can read about this in the book called The Magician, especially chapter 4, which goes in on the magical mind. We just did a group podcast on that a few days ago. You can check that out in the link below. But that's the thing about reality and unreality. It all depends on your perspective, and it all depends on what you're believing in and how strong you're believing in it. That's where you get the phrase, nothing is true, everything is permitted, from Chaos Magic. But I think this about sums up the topic. When you meditate, the point is to get a glimpse of the difference between reality and unreality. And when you're able to start to clearly define the difference between those two states and where you are in relation to those states, you can see that there's an in-between zone. And this in-between zone is where we get to working with different spirits, working with your chakras, and all those types of things. So, this is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. And as always, peace.